You love the birds in your yard. That's not in question. You plant flowers. You trim the shrubs. You leave berries on the branches because you want the robins, chickadees, cardinals, warblers, finches, waxwings, and thrushes to feel like your yard is a safe place. And when they come close, it feels like a blessing. A chickadee lands on the holly. A robin hops under the viburnum. A cedar waxwing pauses in the serviceberry and looks almost painted into the morning. You think your garden is helping. But some of the most common, beautiful plants in backyard gardens are hiding chemicals that can damage a bird's heart, gut, liver, nerves, and ability to survive. Not because you are careless, because nobody tells regular people that a pretty shrub can carry a toxin in its leaves, flowers, nectar, pollen, berries, seed pods, or every single part of the plant. Welcome back to Backyard Bird Whispers. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, because what you're about to learn will change the way you care for the birds that have chosen your yard. Today, we're going through 7 common ornamental garden plants and plant choices that can quietly harm the birds you love, and what to plant instead. Some of these are sitting beside bird feeders right now. One of them looks like a perfect winter berry source. And the last one is the mistake that decides whether baby songbirds get real food or go hungry in a yard that looks beautiful but feeds almost nothing. Stay until the end, because the final replacement is the one that turns your yard from decoration into a living nursery. Number 1. Azaleas and rhododendrons. These are the plants people trust because they look gentle. Big blooms, soft colors, a front yard kind of beauty. The kind of shrub that makes a garden look cared for before a single bird ever lands there. And that is exactly why the danger is easy to miss. Azaleas and rhododendrons can contain grayanotoxin in the leaves, flowers, nectar, and pollen. Grayanotoxin is not just a vague, bad plant chemical. It interferes with sodium channels, which are like the tiny electrical gates that help heart cells and nerve cells fire correctly. In a bird, that matters fast. A warbler is not a large animal with a wide safety margin. A chickadee weighs around 12 grams, less than a tablespoon of water. A finch, a robin, a cedar waxwing, or a thrush does not need to eat a plateful of toxic plant material for the body to be pushed in the wrong direction. When those electrical gates are disrupted, the bird can become disoriented, weak, unsteady. Its heart rhythm can turn abnormal, and in severe cases, it can die. That tiny pause you see when a bird stands too still on a branch may not always be calm. Sometimes stillness is the body trying to keep up with something it cannot explain. And the painful part is that birds do not know your landscaping intentions. They only know what your yard offers. If a chickadee flies into your shrub line, it is not admiring curb appeal. It is reading your garden as habitat. It is asking one question with its whole body. Is this place safe enough to enter? The safer replacements are not boring. Viburnums, holly, and serviceberry can offer structure, shelter, berries, and real ecological value without turning a beautiful corner of the yard into a chemical trap. Cornell Lab of Ornithology and Audubon Society native plant databases point backyard gardeners toward these kinds of native choices for a reason. Plant viburnum instead of poison. Plant serviceberry instead of risk. Let the shrub line become a place where a bird can land without its own meal turning against its heart. Number 2. Asian wisteria. This one fools people because it looks romantic. It climbs, it drapes, it hangs purple flowers like something from an old garden gate. Online, people treat it like a dream plant, the kind of vine that makes a backyard feel magical without asking too many questions. But Asian wisteria contains lectins and wisterin compounds throughout the plant, with the seed pods carrying especially high concentrations. Lectins and wisterin are not decorative words. Think of them as plant chemicals that can punch the digestive system first, then drag the nervous system into the problem. When adult birds consume parts of Asian wisteria, they can suffer gastrointestinal distress, vomiting, and neurological symptoms. And for nesting birds, the danger can move one step deeper. An adult bird may forage, swallow the wrong plant material, and then carry that meal back to the nest through regurgitation. That means the harm is not always kept inside the adult. It can be delivered to nestlings. And nestlings are not tiny adults. They are soft, unfinished bodies trying to build feathers, bones, muscles, and organs at impossible speed. A baby songbird in the nest is basically a living construction site, and every mouthful matters. When a parent bird leans over the nest cup and drops food into an open beak, that should be one of the safest moments in nature. Asian wisteria can turn that moment into a hidden delivery system. That is the part people do not see from the patio. They see flowers. The nest sees chemistry. And if a pair of cardinals, thrushes, or chickadees has chosen your yard, they have already bent their wild schedule around the little world you built. They are not just passing through. They are spending energy there, testing cover, testing food, testing whether your presence and your plants can be trusted. So the rule is strict. Do not plant Asian wisteria for bird habitat. Do not leave seed pods where birds can investigate them. Do not confuse climbing beauty with ecological safety. Choose native vines and native understory plants that support insects, shelter, and nesting without feeding toxins back into the birds that trusted your yard. Number 3. Lantana. This is the one many people plant because it seems like pure backyard joy. Bright clusters, long bloom time, butterflies all over it. A plant that looks busy, colorful, alive, and harmless. So it feels natural to place it near a patio, near a feeder, or along the edge where birds already move through the yard. But lantana has a dangerous stage. The unripe green berries can contain lantidine, a toxin that can damage the liver, irritate the digestive system, and cause photosensitization. Photosensitization sounds technical, but picture it like this. The bird's body starts reacting to sunlight as if light itself has become too harsh for the skin and tissues to handle. For American robins, cedar waxwings, and mockingbirds, that matters because these are exactly the kinds of birds that investigate fruiting shrubs. A cedar waxwing does not read a warning label. It sees a berry. A robin does not know the difference between a native service berry and a toxic green lantana berry sitting in a pretty garden bed. It just forages. And that is the trap. The bird is doing the right wild behavior in the wrong human-made place. The American Bird Conservancy warns about lantana toxicity for birds because the harm is not imaginary. It can mean stomach distress, liver injury, a body suddenly struggling with a meal that looked like food. And here is the emotional flip. When you remove lantana from a bird-heavy yard, you are not taking beauty away. You are taking confusion away. You are making the garden easier for a wild animal to read. Native coneflowers, black-eyed Susans, and salvias
can still bring color, insects, seed heads, and movement. They can still make the yard feel alive, but they do it without placing toxic green berries in the path of a hungry robin. That is the better bargain. Let the flowers feed the insects. Let the insects feed the birds. Let the yard stop offering danger disguised as color. Number 4. English ivy. English ivy looks useful. It covers bare ground. It climbs fences. It softens walls. It gives people the feeling that the yard has been wrapped in something old, green, and stable. But for birds, English ivy can become a slow problem in 2 different ways. The first problem is the berry. English ivy produces winter berries that contain triterpenoid saponins. That phrase sounds like something trapped inside a chemistry textbook, but the plain version is this. These are soap-like plant compounds that can irritate and disrupt the body when enough of them build up. And build-up is the key. A bird may not eat one berry and fall from the sky. That is what makes it sneaky. A robin, thrush, or mockingbird may return over multiple days or weeks, taking a few berries at a time, until the toxin reaches a harmful level. That is how a yard becomes dangerous without looking dramatic. No crash, no obvious scene. Just a bird doing normal winter feeding in a plant that should not be carrying the whole food story. The second problem is what English ivy does to the ground beneath it. Audubon Society and American Bird Conservancy both warn about invasive plants because they can form a monoculture, a single plant takeover. In the eastern United States, English ivy can smother the native understory, the low layer of plants where insects, caterpillars, spiders, and small birds all depend on variety. A chickadee does not raise babies on scenery. It raises babies on soft insects. And when ivy replaces native violets, native ferns, wild ginger, creeping phlox, and Virginia creeper, the yard loses more than plant diversity. It loses tiny living meals.
So the solution is 2-part. Remove English ivy where birds feed and nest. Replace it with native ground covers that let the understory breathe again. Wild ginger, native violets, native ferns, creeping phlox, Virginia creeper. Those names may sound quieter than ivy, but to a bird they speak louder. They say, this yard still has life under the leaves. Number 5, foxglove. Foxglove is beautiful in a way that feels almost too perfect. Tall flower spikes, bell-shaped blooms, a cottage garden look that makes people feel like they've planted something delicate and storybook-like beside the fence. But foxglove is not delicate inside a bird's body. Every structural part of the plant contains digitalis glycosides. The leaves, the flowers, the stems, the seeds, the whole plant carries the chemical risk. Digitalis glycosides affect the heart, and in birds, the heart is not a background organ quietly waiting its turn. It is the engine that keeps flight possible. It powers escape. It powers migration. It powers the tiny furnace that helps a bird thermoregulate through cold mornings and sudden weather shifts. A small songbird's heart already works at a speed that would feel impossible to us. Now imagine adding a plant compound that can force that rhythm into failure. That is why foxglove is not just a plant to be careful with. It is a plant that does not belong in a bird-safe feeding or nesting zone. A cardinal landing near it does not understand the danger. A finch investigating fallen seeds does not know the chemistry. A chickadee moving through the flower bed is not being foolish. It is trusting the map your yard created. And that trust is the part that should stop us. Because when birds come close to our homes, they're not becoming tame. They're making a calculated exception to their own caution. They're choosing your yard over empty distance. They're letting your fence line, your shrubs, your feeder, and your presence become part of their survival route. Do not make that route pass through foxglove. Keep it away from feeder zones. Keep it away from nesting cover. And if your goal is a yard that welcomes birds, choose native blooms that support insects and seeds without carrying heart-stopping chemistry in every green part. Number 6. Ornamental plants that feed almost no caterpillars. This one does not look like poison. That is why it may be the most misunderstood. A yard can be green, blooming, expensive, carefully watered, and still be nearly empty from a baby bird's point of view. Because adult birds may eat seeds and berries, but nestlings need something much softer and richer. They need caterpillars. A chickadee carrying food to a nest is not looking for pretty. It is looking for soft-bodied protein. A warbler feeding young is not searching for a tidy landscape. It is searching for the tiny, moving calories that let a nestling grow feathers, muscles, bones, and a working metabolism fast enough to fledge. And here is the number that should change the way people see a garden forever. Entomologist Doug Tallamy at the University of Delaware has shown that native plants can support between 10 and 50 times more caterpillar species than ornamental non-native plants. 10 to 50 times. That is not a small gardening preference. That is the difference between a nursery and a showroom. A non-native ornamental may look alive to you because it has leaves and flowers, but to many native insects, it is like a locked pantry. They cannot use it. They cannot eat it. They cannot become caterpillars there. And without caterpillars, parent birds have to search farther, burn more energy, leave the nest longer, and bring back less of what their young actually need. That means the danger is not only what a plant contains. Sometimes the danger is what a plant fails to provide. A quiet yard with no caterpillars is not peaceful to a nesting bird. It is empty. So when you plant native shrubs, native flowers, native ground covers, and native trees, you are not just decorating the edge of your property. You are stocking the shelves for every parent bird that has one desperate job before sunset. Find food. Get back.
Keep the babies alive. Number 7. Choosing beauty over habitat. This is the one that ties everything together, because the biggest mistake is not one single plant. It is building a yard that looks generous to human eyes, but gives birds a dangerous, confusing, low-food version of safety. It happens slowly. You buy azaleas because the blooms are gorgeous. You keep rhododendrons because they were already there. You let Asian wisteria climb because it makes the fence look romantic. You plant lantana because butterflies come to it. You leave English ivy because it covers bare soil. You add foxglove because the flowers look old-fashioned and soft. And then one morning, a robin lands under it all. A chickadee slips through the shrub line. A cedar waxwing pauses near the berries. A cardinal watches from the fence. And your heart says, "They came here because I made something good." Maybe you did, but maybe part of the yard is asking birds to solve a puzzle they should never have to solve. Which berry is safe? Which flower carries heart chemistry? Which vine carries toxins in the pods? Which ground cover killed the native understory? Where are the caterpillars? Where is the real food for the nest? Birds are incredible, but they are not magic. They cannot test every plant like a scientist. They cannot read the Cornell Lab of Ornithology database. They cannot open an Audubon Society guide and check whether a shrub belongs in their ecosystem. They use instinct. And in human gardens, instinct can be tricked. That is why the replacement list matters so much. Viburnums, holly, serviceberry, wild ginger, native violets, native ferns, creeping phlox, Virginia creeper, native coneflowers, black-eyed Susans, salvias.
These are not just better plant options. They are a different message to every bird that enters your yard. They say, land here. They say, forage here. They say, bring your young here. They say, this place will not punish you for trusting it. And that trust is not small. When a wild bird comes close to your home, it is giving you a tiny exception to millions of years of caution. It is standing near a giant animal, near glass, near fences, near machines, because something in your yard told it the risk might be worth it. That means your garden is not just decoration. It is a promise. And every toxic ornamental removed, every native replacement planted, every caterpillar-supporting shrub added, is one more way of keeping that promise. You didn't know about all of these. Most people do not. And that is the point. The good news is that every single one of these mistakes is fixable. Not someday, not after you redesign the whole yard. You can start with one plant, one corner, one safer replacement. You do not need a perfect garden. You need a garden that tells the truth to birds. If one of these surprised you, tell me in the comments. And if you have planted one of these before, I promise almost everyone has. Share this video with someone who loves the birds in their yard, because the birds visiting them are reading that landscape for survival too. I'll see you in the next.